My name is Emily Carter, and I never imagined the biggest threat to my marriage would come from the woman who claimed she only wanted what was best for her family. The night everything finally exploded, my mother-in-law slowly pushed a thick manila envelope across the dinner table with a look of complete confidence. She folded her hands together and calmly said that everyone deserved to know the truth. She expected those papers to destroy my marriage, humiliate me in front of the entire family, and prove she had been right about me all along. What she did not know was that I had already found out about that envelope 2 weeks earlier, and during those 14 days, I quietly prepared for the moment she believed would be my downfall. To understand why I stayed calm that evening, you have to understand the kind of woman Linda Brooks was. She never simply met people, she investigated them. Every conversation was an interview, every smile concealed a question, and every weakness became something she stored away for later use. The first time I met her, she did not greet me with warmth or excitement. Instead, her eyes traveled over me as though she were examining evidence. She asked detailed questions about my family, my childhood, my career, and even my late father. Every answer seemed to disappear into an invisible file cabinet inside her mind. My husband, Ryan, laughed afterward and insisted his mother liked me. I smiled back, but deep inside I knew she had already decided I would never be good enough for her son. After Ryan and I got married, Linda behaved as though our home belonged to her. She appeared without warning, reorganized our kitchen cabinets because she claimed they made more sense her way, criticized the groceries we bought, and disguised every insult as helpful advice. She always spoke with perfect manners, but every compliment carried a hidden criticism. It became exhausting trying to predict what she would find wrong next. I eventually stopped trying to impress her because nothing I did ever changed the way she looked at me. Things became much worse after our daughter, Sophie, was born. She was healthy, beautiful, and immediately became the center of our world. Ryan adored her from the very first moment he held her. Linda smiled whenever she visited, but her attention always drifted toward one detail she simply could not let go. Sophie had bright red hair. Nobody else in the Brooks family had that color, and Linda mentioned it every single time she saw her. At first it sounded harmless. She would casually wonder where the red hair came from or joke that someone in the family tree must have been hiding. Eventually those comments became more pointed. She began saying Sophie did not really resemble Ryan, always making sure other relatives were close enough to hear. I refused to argue with her because I recognized something from my work as a physical therapist. Human behavior follows patterns, and repeated behavior almost always reveals intention. Linda was not making innocent observations, she was planting doubt. Every carefully chosen comment was another seed meant to grow into suspicion. Instead of confronting her, I started paying closer attention. I remembered strange little moments that had once seemed meaningless. A missing baby spoon after one visit, a plastic bag I noticed tucked into her purse, questions about medical records that felt oddly specific. Separately, they meant nothing. Together, they painted a disturbing picture. Then everything suddenly made sense. One Tuesday afternoon, I received a phone call from a genetics laboratory after leaving a message with customer support about something that had been bothering me. The representative politely informed me that a DNA test connected to my daughter had recently been processed. My entire body went cold. I immediately explained that neither Ryan nor I had requested any testing. After checking the file, the employee quietly told me the sample had been submitted by Sophie's grandmother. For several seconds I could not even speak. Then reality settled in. My mother-in-law had secretly collected my daughter's DNA and ordered a paternity test without either parent's permission. The shock quickly turned into determination. I contacted an attorney named Melissa Grant that very afternoon. After listening carefully, she explained that Linda had likely violated the law by authorizing genetic testing without parental consent. I expected Melissa to suggest immediate legal action, but instead she offered different advice. She told me to remain completely silent and allow Linda to believe her plan was still hidden. If someone spends months building a trap, they usually become so confident that they eventually step into it themselves. That advice changed everything. For the next 2 weeks, I acted exactly as I always had. I cooked dinner, went to work, laughed with Ryan, and smiled politely whenever Linda visited. Meanwhile, I documented every conversation, every suspicious incident, every date, and every piece of evidence connected to the unauthorized test. Melissa helped me organize everything into a timeline that clearly demonstrated planning, intent, and deception. I never hinted that I knew the truth because I wanted Linda to reveal exactly how far she was willing to go. A few days before the family dinner, I accidentally overheard my sister-in-law, Ashley, talking on the phone while I was dropping off a birthday gift. She did not realize I was standing outside the kitchen doorway when she quietly told someone that her mother planned to reveal the DNA results during Sunday's family dinner. My stomach tightened instantly. Linda was not satisfied with privately accusing me. She wanted an audience. She wanted every relative present, so she could publicly destroy my reputation while presenting herself as the brave woman protecting her son. Sunday finally arrived, and the atmosphere inside the dining room felt strangely tense. Linda was unusually cheerful, almost glowing with confidence. Throughout dinner, she barely spoke to me, but every few minutes I noticed her glancing toward the envelope resting beside her chair. She looked like someone counting down the minutes until a carefully rehearsed performance. Ryan had absolutely no idea what was about to happen, and watching him enjoy dinner with his family made my heart ache because I knew his world was about to change. As soon as everyone finished eating, Linda slowly stood from her chair and cleared her throat. The room became completely silent. She picked up the envelope and looked directly at me before speaking. She calmly announced that she believed Ryan deserved to know the truth about his daughter because too many questions had gone unanswered. Without waiting for permission, she handed the paperwork to him. Every eye at the table focused on Ryan as he slowly read through the pages. Seconds felt like hours. Finally, he looked up with complete confusion and quietly said that the report clearly identified him as Sophie's biological father with virtually absolute certainty. The confidence vanished from Linda's face so quickly that it almost seemed unreal. She stared at Ryan, convinced he must have misunderstood the report. Before she could speak again, I gently interrupted. I looked directly at her and explained that I had contacted the laboratory 2 weeks earlier after discovering the unauthorized testing. Her expression instantly changed because she realized I had known about her plan all along. I calmly explained that genetic testing had been performed without parental consent and that my attorney had already documented every detail. Nobody around the table said a single word. Then I asked Ryan to continue reading because there was another result farther down the report. He turned the page and suddenly frowned. The laboratory had identified a close genetic relative connected to Sophie's DNA profile. The report listed an adult male whose relationship strongly indicated he was Ryan's half-brother. Confused voices immediately filled the room. Nobody recognized the name. Ryan slowly looked at his mother and quietly asked who that man was. For the first time since I had known her, Linda completely lost control. Her carefully practiced confidence disappeared, replaced by panic and regret. Tears filled her eyes, as she admitted that decades earlier, long before Ryan was born, she had given birth to another son. Circumstances she had spent her entire life trying to forget had led to an adoption that nobody in the family had ever known about. She had buried the secret so deeply that even her husband had never learned the truth. The DNA test she secretly ordered to expose me had accidentally uncovered the very secret she had spent more than 30 years hiding from everyone she loved. The room fell into stunned silence as every piece finally came together. Linda had spent years questioning my honesty because she had never truly escaped her own past. Her obsession with proving someone else was lying had been fueled by the guilt and fear she carried inside herself. She convinced herself she was protecting her family, but in reality she had been fighting memories she could never erase. Her own hidden shame had become the lens through which she judged everyone around her, especially me. Nobody knew what to say after that. Family members quietly left the table one by one, unable to process everything they had just witnessed. Ryan and I drove home without speaking much. Late that night, while Sophie slept peacefully upstairs, he took my hand and admitted he could not believe I had stayed silent for 2 weeks. I smiled gently and told him I was never trying to embarrass his mother. I simply believed the truth had a way of revealing itself when people stopped trying to manipulate it. The weeks that followed were difficult, but they were also surprisingly healing. Ryan eventually reached out to the brother he never knew existed, beginning a relationship that neither of them ever expected. Other family members slowly accepted that years of silence had caused far more damage than honesty ever could have. Linda apologized, not just for the DNA test, but for every year she had spent trying to control people through suspicion and fear. Rebuilding trust was not easy, but at least everyone finally understood what had really happened. Looking back now, I realize the greatest lesson had nothing to do with DNA or family secrets. People who spend their lives searching for flaws in others are often desperately trying to hide wounds inside themselves. Linda believed that envelope would destroy my family forever. Instead, it exposed the truth she had carried alone for decades. The very weapon she intended to use against me became the key that unlocked her own secret, proving that honesty may arrive late, but once it does, nothing can stand in its way.